is to be punished on account of putting despair from the hope of Allah in the hearts of those who need Allah. My topic with you today is the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a source of hope. See, the prophets of Allah alayhimus salam ajma'een were all sources of hope. Like when you look in the Quran, mashallah, Sheikh Muhammad al-Faqih, he was quoting from Surah Taha often. In one of these beautiful places in Surah Taha, Allah describes the nation of Bani Israel who had just seen the destruction of Fir'aun. Could you imagine you stood on the banks of that river, of that lake, of that Nile, wherever it was, and you saw that the water split in two, and Allah saved you. You crossed over the shore. You look back, and you see Fir'aun, Haman, and their troops drowned in that same water by the power of Allah. Could you imagine that in a matter of days, that you would worship a golden idol instead of Allah? This is what Bani Israel did. Musa hurried from them, left them with Harun, and they began to worship an idol instead of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Harun, who was given this instruction, "Ukhlufni fi qawmi," stay behind with my people, tell them about their Lord, weakened with their number and amount of deviance that they performed. And Harun would say to them, listen to the words of the Prophet. He says, "Inna rabbakum rahman." He says to his people who are worshipping a golden idol instead of Allah, my people, irrespective of what you've done, irrespective of this sin, irrespective of how far you've gone, of the shirk you have performed, as far away as you have drawn away from Allah, never forget your Lord is Ar-Rahman. Never forget. The one who has a heart that loves Allah leads people who are weak to love Allah, not just fear Allah. He doesn't say your Lord will punish you. I'm going to move away because the torment is going to descend. The ghadab of Allah is soon upon you. La. He says, "Inna rabbakum ar-Rahman, fattabi'uni wa ati'u amri." Such was Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A man, as is reported in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, comes out of the desert, a rough man. He's a man who's a sayyid, a master, a chief in his people, in his tribe. He comes out of the desert rough, and he comes to our Nabi al-Kareem Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and he says, "Ya Muhammad, a'tini min malillah, la min malika wa la mali abik." Ya Muhammad, give me from the wealth of God, not your money or the money of your father. I'm not asking for your charity. You claim to be a prophet. Give me from what God has given you. The Sahaba saw the abusive tone of this man, and they held him up and said, "Don't you know who you're talking to?" The Prophet said, "Da'u." He pushed them away from him and he said, "Ya akh al-Arab, come with me. My brother of the Arab, come here. Come here, my Bedouin brother." And he took him by the hand, and some of the riwayat, they say that the Prophet ashbaka, he put his finger intertwined with the man's fingers. He held him like this and walked him to his home, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Prophet opened the doors and says, "Khudh ma turid." Take whatever you want. The man took everything. See, greed is greed. The man left nothing, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet smiled to him as he's adding on more and more. "Give me this carpet, give me this, give me." Took everything from the Prophet's house, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Mounted it on his camel. And the Prophet said, "Ana akramtuk." Did I honor you? Was I generous to you? The man said, "Yes. I've never seen anyone more generous than you, Ya Rasulullah." That man went back out into the desert to his people. And then the Prophet gathered those same Sahaba and taught them and us a lesson about hope. The Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the example of how you treated that man and how I treated him is the example of a person who owns a camel. He knows his camel. He knows what kind of food it likes, what kind of tune to sing to it. But you are like people who see that man's camel running and you don't know its temperament, so you begin to chase it. But when you chase it, it will run further away. And when you call it, it's going to run from you. And if you just let the camel go, and let the one who owns it, the ulama, those who have knowledge, pursue it. The one who knows and has rahmah, how to talk to his camel, he's going to take some of its fruit, some of its food, and will put it in the air and call it with its name. And that camel that you would make run away will run back to him. That was Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Hope